This is the second session of basic hybridizing. As you can see there, this is the seed pod of the Alps that has been pollinated with another chimera. I don't expect to get a chimera out of it, but the flower was just looking at me so temptingly for a few days. I can't help myself but pollinate it. So that's pollinated since the 18th of June. So July, so it's 2 months, so at least another month to go. So for seed pod to be viable, it takes at least 3 months. So if your seed pod happen to dry off before then, depending on how close you are to the 3 months, you are reasonably close, I suggest you try to sow it. But if it's way under the 3 months, I suspect it's an infertile flowers seed pod. Sometimes call it false seed pod. They were bought before the term. And if you open it out, you most probably either find dust or nothing at all. Okay. So this one seems to be still going, and I saw a few people posting their attempt. So thank you very much for that. Thanks to Gaskew using the JS Ice Castle. As you can see with trailer, the seed pod is so much more tinier than if you are using a standard like this. And you also see Sue Hodges' seed pod with standards that tends to be much bigger. And I think Jackie has shown the Allen's Fallen Angel, another trailer. So that one will be interesting. It's a longifolia, that one. So and it will be interesting to see what she get out of that one. All right, if you're interested, fascinated with trailer like I do. All right, so just quickly go through what we did last time. I think it's about picking which one is a seed parent. So finding a plant that has a fertile stigma. That is no one can tell you which one is fertile or not fertile. You just have to find out yourself. So any flower that is double plus, it's unlikely you're going to find a stigma at all. Or if occasionally you find one, it might not be fertile. But if you do find one, try it. The reason double plus is because that get converted to petals in the flower. So either deformed or non-existent, and the same with the pollen sac. So the anthers where the pollen sac is either get converted to flower petals or it's deformed. Sometimes you see the pollen sac, half-formed pollen sac stick to petals. So unfortunately for hybridizer, that is what we don't like to see, is the end of the line. You can't use that offspring to do further hybridizing. Right? And the same with pollen, not just because there is pollen set, you get pollen. So it's all trial and error and find out which one is a good seed parent, which one is a good pollen parent. So those are things you could look at. And I also sent out a link from Dr. Jeff Smith, a botanist from the US which specializes in African Violets, about the dominance and recessive gene trait of the plant. So you don't need to understand a lot more in great detail, but that table gives you some guideline of what are the likelihood. Just remember, it's all about probability. So there's no guarantee in this. So you just understand what color is more dominant, what leaf type is more dominant compared to others. All right. So you cross a dominant with a dominant, what are you going to get? You cross a dominant with a recessive, what are you going to get? And you cross a recessive with a recessive. All right. So that table is a good guideline for you to use. Or just ignore everything and just do what you want. All right. That's how I started as well. So just have fun with it. That's the whole purpose of this. Right. So last time I think we finished at where we have pollinated a flower, and then what do you do to grow this, to make sure that the seed pod continue? So the whole thing about making sure that the seed pod doesn't abort for the 3 months. 3 months is reasonably long period of time for people like us. We're impatient to get this the seeds. The best thing is keep the plant healthy. Right? The minute the plant is not healthy, like it's not water, it dry off, and that will cause the plant to be under stress. Anything that causes the plant to be under stress, the first thing the plant will do is abort all the seed pod, because that consumes so much energy. All right? So always keep that going. Keep the leaf that support the bloom stalk alive, which means don't cut it off. All right? Because if you cut that leaf off, you have the possibility of removing the bloom stalk at the same time. So do not do that. All right. When the plant is doing this, groom it if you need to, but avoid grooming. Is my method. Because I've a few times trying to groom it. What I did is removing the immature seed pod at the same time. All right. For some reason, we thought that's not the leaf that, and it have to be the leaves that the bloom stalk is attached to. All right. Or you remove a dead brings another bloom stalk, thinking it's not it, and unfortunately, it is it. So be patient with it. Give it the fertilizer that you normally do in how you grow a plant. Keep the plant healthy, and leave it. Don't try to remove this. All right. As long as there's no fungus in it, leave it. All right. Don't touch it. Don't try to move it up and down. Just leave it. All right. I know we all very tempted to go and see how it's growing every day, but the more you touch it, the more likely you're going to do something accidentally with it. So don't do anything there. So after about 3 months, sometimes longer, depending on which plant, you if you're lucky enough, you get a seed pod. So this is a cross. So you get a seed pod like this, which everything is dried up. So I let it dry in the plant. All right. I seldom. Some people take it off when they see the bloom stalk starting to brown. All right. I don't think there's any harm doing that, because one other thing people want to do that is prevent the seed pod from getting fungus infection. You don't want to wait for 3, 4, sometimes 5 months and then finding that the seed pod starting to get fungus on it. All right? Things like that happen from my view, is that either your environment is very high in humidity. It's very high in humidity, then it might be good. The minute you see it, they normally start here, not at the end. All right? Browning, as far as I've seen so far, it starts at the end of this part of it. Right? So when that starts to happen, you can take it off and then put in. Make sure you have the label with you, and then put it in a cool place and airy so that you can slowly dry off. Don't cover it off, because then again you're creating humidity and mold start to grow. Okay. All right, so this is a cross between emerald bell and fleshy tail. So for those, that's emerald bell. It's a very It's an acquired taste in terms of the flower type. I at first don't quite like it, but I've grown to really like this flower. It's a bit difficult to pollinate this this flower. As you can see, it will never open. This is as far as it is. So I have to slowly peel off the petals without damaging the stigma. So and then pollinate it. I'm hoping to get something similar to that in a trailer form. Flashy tail is a bell shape. Unfortunately, it's a dropper, so I'm not sure. I'm hoping there's no dropping genes in this plant. If it is, then I might get a dropper out of it, which is not a good trait. All right, so as I say previously, once you have a seed pod, I use a white piece of paper, okay, to store seed pod for obvious reasons. For pollen, I use a black because the pollen is white, so it's easy to see, and the reverse for the seed. The seed is dark in color, and you use a dark paper, you won't be able to see. So however you want to do this, there's various ways of creating an envelope. For me, I just use a white piece of paper, just fold it. I think the seed bank from zoologists, they use, I think, wax sort of paper. But I prefer this because I can then write on it. So then I create an envelope. So I can write on this part. I can store the seed in there. All right. Once I folded it, I do all these first because you don't want to be fumbling around when you're sitting there, because it's easily you can then dislodge it. All right. So with the seed pod, I'll move this up so you can see better. So I'll just untangle it. So just get rid of the others. So this is what you want. All right, and then I'll make sure your room again, like pollination, your fans are all turned off. You're not breathing heavily, all right? Because we're talking a very tiny seed here, and I use a skewer, a bamboo skewer of some sort, all right? And your hands are dry, all right? Otherwise, the seed will stick over. So just do however you like it. This is how I do mine, all right? Just one hand, just slowly. This is where you find out whether you really have any seed in there. Right? Sometimes you wait for 6 months and you get no seed whatsoever. I've done this one before. We don't get a lot of seed out of it, unfortunately. So it's a bit painful. So we don't want to use a knife for this because you don't want to slice through the seeds. Okay. So just give it a bit. Okay. I think this is as much as you get from this seed pod. Some will give you a lot, some will give you very little. So you can see a few seeds in there. There are a fair bit of shells, which is okay. Not to worry too much about it. So this is your seed pod, the seeds that you get from the seed pod. Just one mistake that a lot of people do is you sow this whole thing there. The problem with that is you're going to get so many seedlings, you don't know what to do with it. All right? We all have very limited space. So you want only to sow a tiny amount, all right, at a time. And you don't, to be honest, from the few years I've done it, not many, I normally sow, I don't count it, but I always use this rule: 20 seeds is more than enough, all right? And 20 seeds, you don't need much, all right? So before we go into sowing, I'll show you how I do the mix for the sowing. Okay. All right. Now, this is not what I use. I'll just show you. These are Jiffy pellets that you can buy from a club or from Bunnings or some other gardening store. Okay. So you just it's one of that, put in some boiling water and then cut in half, and then you sow on top. I don't like this because I actually grow my seedling until they flowers, and this mix is not suitable for that. Most people I know who sprout from here and then they transfer to individual medicine cups to grow them. I don't have space for. First of all, I don't have time for it, and nor do I have space for it. Just imagine I have to transfer 20 seedling from one cross to 20 medicine cups. To me, I'm too lazy to do that, unfortunately. So my method is I use a takeaway cup. This also a container. This is not your standard size takeaway container. It's about a third of the size. You can get this in $2 shops. Those not sure about. I think maybe you can get in reject shop too. I don't know. But they're about the third of the size, which is the perfect size for me. And I use my African Violet mix because I grow, as I say, I grow the seedling in them until they flower. Then I decide whether the flower is good enough or not before I put them up. So this is my own mix. As you can see, it's very, very loose. Okay, so I just take it off. Pack them down. I do pack them down in this case. You can't just sow the seed in there because of the perlite creating a lot of cracks. One thing you don't want to do is have the seed dropping between the cracks, the cracks, because the seed need light to germinate. All right, so to prevent them dropping the cracks, so I took that Jiffy pellets that I soak up, and then I dried it, and then I crumble it, right? And this is what you get. Right? So what I do is I sprinkle a very, very thin layer. I don't want thick layer. Okay, very, very thin layer on top. The purpose is to try to cover up the cracks, and don't use your hand to pack it down. I'll show you how to do the next step. So, okay, and then what I do is a spray. All right, just give the plum a lot of moisture. All right. It looks a bit wet. You need it, okay? Because you're not watering it until they're quite size, good size. I'll show you later on. Now the next step is, this is sanitizing. Okay, one of the problem with seedling, one of the challenges that seedling will encounter is the problem of what they call dam off. It will kill off. It's a fungus. It's a fungus that will kill off the seedling. So you see the seedling growing very nicely one day, the next day they're totally dead. Okay, it's called dam off. So just Google if you want. So I cover this up with a paper towel. Take this off now. So back a bit. Yeah. Okay. So I cover it with paper towel. I put it in the microwave for an hour. Oh, sorry, 1 minute. For 1 minute. So that will help me sanitize everything. All right. After 1 minute, I leave it like that for quite a few hours. I normally prepare this in the evening, and then the following day I'll use it. It will be totally cooled down by then. You do not want to have warm or anything like that. You'll kill the seeds. All right. So I leave this cover up. All right. This will prevent too much evaporation. You take it off. You could potentially two problems will occur. One is the top layer will dry up. That's the most important layer. And the second layer is fungi seeds in the air can reset back in the container, which is what you don't want to have. Okay, you just sanitize it. At this point in time, you do not spray with any more water. All right. So when you take it out, this is the one I did earlier on, right? So it looks like that, and hopefully, now one thing you got to watch out for is if you put too much water, you find that there's a lot of holes, because when you put in the microwave, the water will heat up and start to boil. If too much water, you end up having a lot of holes. If that's the case, you got to redo it again. Reduce the amount of water, because you don't want holes. 1 or 2 holes, yeah, doesn't matter. All right. And don't forget to label it and put a date, 2 days in the date that you're sowing it. All right. So now that this is ready, okay. So you can see it looks damp, but not wet, just enough moisture in there. Okay, I'll put that aside. So the next bit is the seed. Now I use another piece of paper, assuming you've got a lot of seed there, not just that. That's quite a small amount. So I can just trickle it down like that. But I find that if I do that, the seed tends to all fall in one go, and then I got a lump of green in the center or somewhere. So if you're good at doing that, that's not an issue. Again, do what is comfortable for you. So that's what I do is I use a pot and you just fold roughly there, just a guide. It's more just a guide thing. So tap the seed around. So there should be more than enough seeds there. It doesn't look like there is any, but there are seeds. Right? So I use there, and I just gently tap. Okay. And so, and the last thing I do is a grab. This is a short version, which is really good. And cover it up. Okay. So just ready for to be put away. I normally put it where you have double the light strength of where you normally grow your plants. So as much bright light as you can, not direct light again, only if in terms of natural light, but in terms of artificial light, I use artificial light. So my shell height is about 30 centimeters, so I put this at about 15 centimeter to the light. So they need strong light to germinate, and they need warmth. Okay, so if your room is less than 20 or below, absolutely not below 18, wet till is warmer. If it's too cold, they will not germinate, and they will just rot away. You find that after a week you see white dots, then you know they didn't germinate. Okay, for various reasons. It's not necessarily temperature. It could be as simple as the seeds are not mature, or the seeds will never be mature. So you can put this, I'll label it afterwards, and then the rest, what I do is I put in another container of this and then put in the fridge. And you can live in there for a couple of years and take it out whenever you want to. So they'll sit in there. If it's your own seed pod, fresh, it normally takes about 10 days. Then you can start to see small green speck. Then you know that you've got germination. There's no guarantee. I had quite a number of instances where I get nothing. That's how the game is. Not every seed pod you have, every seed that you think there are seeds will germinate. Okay, so for reason unknown to us, or to me anyway, that's how the games is. But so far, most of the time they're good. I find dealing with wasps are a lot more difficult. Wasps tends to generate a lot of false seed pod. Anything that has green is a challenge as well. Frozen in times, the seed pod stay there for 6 months and do nothing. So some of those can be very frustrating, but that's the name of the game. Right, so if you're lucky, this was sown on the 30th of June. And you get some seedling there. To me, that's more than enough. You don't have to cover with that. And I let it grow in there. And this is an unfortunate one. I pollinated eye castle with some other plant, and obviously the flowers that I can see didn't take, so I removed the tags, and sometime later on I found a seed pod, but I forgot what I pollinated with. So this is an eye castle with an unknown pollen. And the other thing, with variegated plants, your seedling take a long time to grow. They're much slower. So you see, I'm living in there. I have not even opened the seal. So this is since the 30th of June. There's enough moisture in there for it to keep growing. So this is where I started, maybe using an eyedropper and using a 1/8 of strength or even weaker fertilizer. Just do 1 or 2 drops. Don't do any more. All right, and leave it in there for a little while longer. I'll let this grow a bit longer, and then I'll use solder iron solder and burn some holes at the bottom and put a wick through. I wick everything, even my seedling. So before I take this off, like propagation, you acclimatize it by poking holes in here. So poke 7 holes, 1 hole a day across 7 days. Once you poke enough holes, hopefully the climate in there and your outside is the same. If you just open it up like that and expose it, you put the plant in shock because it's very high humidity, warmer temperature in there than outside. Right? So always remember to do that. So that's since, as I say, 30th June, July, so it's about a month and a half. This is an eye cluster with Jolly Sun Chaser. The reason I picked that Jolly Sun Chaser is a cream yellow color. It's a semi-miniature. And I read somewhere, I can't never find an article with again. Is Ice Castle has a yellow flower heritage, one of its parents. So I'm hoping to bring some yellow into a variegated trailer. So this has been growing since 28th of February. So obviously, if you grow in a community, you take a bit longer as opposed to you take I think most people will take at this stage and maybe slightly bigger and take individual out and plant it out individually. Right? I don't do that. It's just so much time and effort. I do that only in a couple of other occasions. It's quite a lot of effort, and I don't have space, so I just grow in there. Wait till I grow until it flowers. It's already weak, as you can see, and this is my normal fertilizer concentration already. Right? I don't use anything different. The minute I put it on my water reservoir, which is communal, it's the normal strength. All right, I don't dilute it. All right? So you just grow there, compete with each other until it flowers. This I put too many seeds in this one, so it got very crowded. This is a new flower just come out. I don't think there's anything interesting. This is a if you have seen Southern Lindo, the flower is a semi-mini. The flower is very interesting to me in the sense it has 2 tones. It has, the lower 3 petals are dark blue and the top 2 petals are light blue. I don't know the inheritance genetics of that. Is it the genetic trait, or is just something about the flower? Tiny Wood is a miniature trailer. It's blue. So I didn't expect to get anything but blue because, as we all know, blue is dominant color. But as you can see, this is not blue. All right. Do I get trailer in there? I have no idea. There are so many plants in there. Now, what I do is that if I do find a plant that are interesting flowers, or something's happening, what I do is I trim off the leaves. Okay, you either take the plants off, plant it separately, which then you have to wait again because you take it off. Or what I do is to further confirm the flower is good before I do anything else, or I trim off the leaves. So give it space, give it light, and see how it grows. All right, so this is since January. 23rd of January. All right. So again, it all depends on what you're trying to do with your hybridizing. Are you just having a play, which is fine, okay? And this might be the end of the road for you. For me, I have set goal to get more different type of flowers for trailer with different types of foliage, and also variegation in the foliage. To me, it will require a bit more work because trailer is a recessive trait. So most of the time when I do a cross, I will have to get the pollen from either a standard or semi-miniature or miniature and pollinate with trailer. All right. Jay's Ice Castle is my favorite trailer seed parent because it seems to take the pollination very well. Okay, it's semi-miniature and it's white. So when it's white, it's good because you don't have that dominance of blue interfering. All right, you can get a pink out of it, but it's that white background. Although it's a mask, I also checked the heritage of JSI Castle. I think it's a cross between I can't remember, but there are white and pink heritage, which is good. So I can transfer other color and transfer other features of flower like frill, getting thumbprints, getting all sorts of things like that into iCastle. But because I'm doing that way, being recessive trait, my first pollination is most probably not useful. The result is most probably majority of time I will get a non-trailer, right? But a non-trailer with recessive genes in it. Right? So what I need to do is take the next step. So use the seedling of this pollination, and I'll pick a good one, a couple of good ones, and then cross with another seedling. I prefer not to cross by itself. That's the other. What people do is you do a self of that of the seedling and get a trailer out of it, right? But selfing tends to bring out some of the non-desirable recessive traits because you're crossing by itself, right? So it's better to cross with another plant, either a trailer or another seedling of yours that you know there is recessive genes in there, that has trailing genes in there, which is recessive as well. So there is a better chance the next cross will give you a trailer. Whether you get the flower or not, that's a different story again. Right? So it always keep you guessing, keep you interested. So for me, there's two steps, possibly 3 steps to get there. Right? So that's why it is. I hope this is useful to all of you. I think this one is a very interesting cross. I'll end with this. I think this has not been named yet. It's about to be second generation is growing. This was actually a cross between a species which is a trailing species, Mangagensis occidentalis, with a semi-miniature, which is variegated. The semi-miniature is actually the seed parent. And I was surprised to get a trailer of it with a thumbprint. And so sometimes it surprises you. You don't expect it to happen, but it does. That's the whole thing about genetics. It's all about probability. All right. So I hope this session is useful to you. I didn't see whether there's any question. If you do, post it, and I will try to answer it later on. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining me.